My mom and dad were Hungarian, and they were Holocaust survivors. They immigrated to the U.S. in 1954. I was born in Sweden in 1952. They have an interesting history in that they were childhood sweethearts. Separated by the war, my mom went to Auschwitz, and my dad went to a Hungarian labor camp. And they had a tough time. But after the war, my dad heard my mother was still alive, and in Sweden, perhaps the result of efforts by Raoul Wallenberg, who was trying to save Hungarian Jews. So he heard she was alive through through a relative that had walked into his shop after the war, I think in '47, said she was still alive, and he got smuggled into Sweden on a fishing boat. He hid between the hull and the hold of the boat. You know, after the war, you didn't have identification papers, so the only way to do this was to this sort of effort, and they were reunited in Sweden and lived there for till they got married in '48 and lived there till '54. So then they immigrated to Chicago, where I grew up, and they ran a small dry cleaning business, and so that's pretty much early life.
I was asking you whether you had siblings.
No, I don't. I'm an only child.
And what then? So you went to school in public schools in Chicago? Or?
I did. I had a great high school biology teacher who actually he was my AP teacher. I started working as a teacher's aide for him, helping out in doing labs and everything, and I think, you know, he really kindled my interest in science. And he told me about NSF summer research programs. So I applied to summer research programs between my sophomore and junior year in high school. I went to Grand Forks, North Dakota. It was one of the only programs that would take students that young. And I worked in a public health lab. And that was a lot of fun. I got exposed to medical problems like rabies. We did tests for rabies in the lab, in fact, using fluorescent antibodies, which introduced me a little bit to immunology. And then the following summer, I went to the Jackson Laboratory in Bar Harbor, Maine, which is wonderful. That was a fantastic program. There were 29 students, whereas the Grand Forks program had only, I think, 6 or 8. So there was a critical mass at the Jackson Lab. And the Jackson Lab is a place that a lot of immunologists know because they make recombinant inbred mice that we all use. That was a fantastic summer, a great experience, and I guess I realized that not all students interested in science were nerds. So we had a lot of fun.